A great series finale can place a TV show firmly in the annals of television history. Blackadder had a surprisingly poignant ending, MASH bid farewell to its characters and its audience beautifully, and The Office managed to deliver a perfect finale at the end of a massively disappointing final season. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul both provided suitably bittersweet endings to their pulpy crime stories, and the finale of 6 Feet Under was just as profound and thought-provoking as the series that preceded it.
Can't take a picture of this, it's already gone.
But a bad series finale can turn a beloved show like Game of Thrones or How I Met Your Mother into an easy target. It's never easy to come up with the right ending to a story, but it's probably tougher to come up with an ending for a TV show than any other kind of story. Films, novels, and video games all map out their stories from beginning to end and tell that story to their audience in one fell swoop. But TV writers don't know how long their show will go on for, so they usually can't start planning for an ending until they've been telling the story in chunks for 4 or 5 years, and the network starts making plans to end it. A series finale has to live up to years of investment from the audience, and it rarely does. It has to tie up all the loose ends and leave the characters in a place that not only feels like a definitive conclusion to their arc, but also feels right for their character. It's especially precarious when the series started off with a big question that the ending would inevitably have to answer. Twin Peaks fans wanted to know who killed Laura Palmer. Succession fans wanted to know who would run Waystar Royco in Logan's absence. Lost fans wanted to know what the hell was up with that crazy island. If the answer to that question isn't satisfying, then the whole series can feel like a waste of time. Game of Thrones fans spent 8 long years waiting to see who would end up on the Iron Throne, and they were bitterly disappointed when the answer to that question was Bran Stark. There are plenty of disappointing series finales, Gossip Girl, Quantum Leap, 2.5 Men, but there's a small handful of staples that show up without fail on every list of the worst series finales of all time. But are they really that bad? Was The Sopranos' cut to black really so underwhelming? Did Seinfeld's cast really not deserve to go to prison? Let's take a look back at some of these staples and determine if they really are as bad as everyone says.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Street light, don't stop.
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I sleep all night and I work all day.
He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
The Dexter finale really is as bad as everyone says. It's like they went out of their way to betray every fan who stuck around for 8 seasons. Dexter's final episode was so bad it made me regret putting in the time to watch the series in the first place. Throughout the whole series, we'd watched Dexter struggle to grow into something more than a killer. And then in the final episode, he decided to fuck off all that character development, dump his sister in the ocean, abandon his family, and move to the middle of nowhere to become a lumberjack. I've never seen a TV show tell its audience to go fuck themselves quite like the sight of Mountain Man Dexter. Not only is the finale's plotting asinine and nonsensical and completely against the characters, it's also riddled with stupid plot holes, like how the hell did Dexter manage to just walk out of the hospital with Deb's body unnoticed? I can only assume the episode's title, Remember the Monsters, refers to the writers who fucked up the ending. It will never not astound me that the producers of How I Met Your Mother managed to absolutely nail the casting of the mother and stick the landing getting her together with Ted and making the audience fall in love with her, and still completely fuck up the ending. The show's fatal flaw was deciding on an ending way too early and refusing to change it. Since Ted Mosby was telling the entire story to his son and daughter, and those child actors were aging beyond how long it would take to tell an anecdote, the producers decided to shoot parts of the series finale in season 2. This wrote the show's ending into a corner before it even really found its feet. It determined that the mother was dead and that Ted would end up with Robin. But by the time the show actually ended, a whopping 7 seasons later, it had spent a whole season turning the mother into a beloved character, and Ted and Robin's romance had reached a perfect stopping point long before then. The showrunners should have recognized that the ending they shot with the kids in season 2 wouldn't work in season 9, but they were determined to use that footage.
The point of the story is that
you totally have the hots for Aunt Robin.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
You're grounded.
there? You're getting complaints about a woman crying hysterically?
Yeah, you know what? I hear her too, and it sounds like she's having such a hard time.
The ending of Lost is nowhere near as bad as it's made out to be. It's been called a cop-out, a disappointment, a betrayal of the fans, but honestly, it's about as solid as the ending of this show could possibly be. J.J. Abrams' signature mystery box storytelling style had left so many questions unanswered that there was no way to wrap them all up in a single episode. And even if they did, it would have been disappointing to have the finale be a series of explanations tying up all the loose ends. I think the writers made the right call by focusing more on the emotional resolution of the character arcs than explaining everything that came tumbling out of the mystery box over the years. The Lost finale is often mistaken for a cliched "they were dead the whole time" ending, but that completely misses the point. Everyone has to die eventually, that doesn't mean they were dead the whole time. The parallel universe Flash Sideways storylines took place in a kind of limbo, but they were more about the powerful bonds all these people have. Even if the plane landed safely, even if they led totally different lives, fate would still bring them all together.
This is how we should have ended the finale. Oh my God, you're right. How did we not think of that?
The final episode of Seinfeld was one of the most watched series finales in television history, but Seinfeld always flew in the face of sitcom conventions, so it was going to be impossible to pull off the grandest convention in the genre, a big, momentous, feel-good finale. Seinfeld was a show about nothing. It couldn't have an extravagant ending.
But what's the show about? It's about nothing.
Most sitcom finales have something wonderful happen to their characters, like a wedding or a newborn baby or an exciting job opportunity. But Seinfeld was a show that always made its characters the butt of the joke. They weren't good people, they were petty and vindictive and borderline sociopathic, so they didn't deserve a happy ending. In a typical finale, Jerry and Elaine would have gotten married, or one of Kramer's get-rich-quick schemes would have actually worked out, but that kind of sentimental ending would have felt disingenuous for Seinfeld. After 180 episodes of minutiae, you can't suddenly introduce a plot in the last episode. All things considered, a trial that ends with all the main characters in jail is probably the best ending we could hope for. It was a fun excuse to bring back all the fan-favorite supporting characters and one-off characters from iconic episodes, and the great irony is that in the final episode of this show about nothing, the characters all ended up in jail for doing nothing. It's not a perfect ending. I don't understand why Geraldo Rivera gets so much screen time for pointless color commentary, but this show never had an overarching story, so the fact that it has a definitive ending at all is pretty impressive.
What's the most acclaimed drama of all time?
The Sopranos.
Right, and what's the most memorable moment in the history of that show?
Well, I'd have to say...
The discussion around the Sopranos finale is all hung on the final scene. As the Sopranos gather for dinner and Tony cautiously looks around the restaurant at a few suspicious characters, the episode abruptly cuts to black.
Don't stop.
A lot of viewers felt shortchanged by this anticlimactic ending, but I think it's actually genius. Whether or not anyone in that restaurant is there to kill Tony, the bigger picture is that Tony is paranoid that one of them is. He's taken such a dangerous path in life that he can't even enjoy a meal with his wife and kids without worrying he's going to get murdered in broad daylight. He might not have been gunned down in that particular restaurant on that particular day, but in all likelihood he'll get gunned down at some public place on some random day, and he won't see it coming, so why should we? If and when Tony eventually gets whacked, it'll feel like a sudden cut to black in the middle of Don't Stop Believin'. David Chase famously avoided giving the audience any semblance of closure in this show, because closure is an invention of drama. It's not realistic to wrap everything up in a neat bow. A prime example is the notorious episode where Dr. Melfi gets raped and unwittingly identifies her attacker in a sandwich shop. As grimly satisfying as it would have been to see Tony beat that rapist piece of shit to death, that would just be for us. It would make us feel better, and it would make us feel like justice had been served. But it wouldn't undo Dr. Melfi's trauma. She would still have to live with that pain. So Chase refused to give the audience that satisfaction. Some people were unhappy with that, understandably, but it's a much more accurate reflection of the lasting trauma of assault. A lot of viewers were hoping that the missing Russian from Pine Barrens would reappear in the finale, but Chase never had any intention of bringing him back. He was more interested in capturing the ambiguity of real life than adhering to the conventions of storytelling. So ending on an abrupt cut to black is perfectly in line with the show's style. And dwelling on the cut to black at the end ignores what a perfect hour of television this finale was, right up until that moment. The actual ending might have been an anticlimax in that brilliantly subversive Sopranos way, but the episode itself is an action-packed climax for the series. Tony's revenge for an off-color remark made to Meadow is the final straw for Phil Leotardo, leading to an all-out gang war between the two families. Suddenly all bets are off and no one is safe. There's a deadly shootout in every other scene, and amidst all the chaos, all the major characters get a definitive ending. Meadow gets engaged, AJ is set up for a career in a semi-legitimate business, and Tony ties up all his loose ends, albeit risking indictment in the process. Tony's final scene with Junior is beautifully bittersweet. As he finally visits his uncle after refusing to speak to him following the accidental shooting, Tony sees Junior has completely lost his mind to dementia and no longer recognizes him, and realizes he should have buried the hatchet a lot sooner. Tony reminds Junior that he and his brother once ran New Jersey, which Junior has no memory of.
You're my dad. You two ran North Jersey.
We did?
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
Tony and Junior certainly had their differences over the years, and we've seen time and time again that these are not good guys, but it's hard not to get emotional watching this final teary-eyed interaction between the two. The Sopranos' final episode is far from one of the worst finales in TV history. On the contrary, I'd argue that it's one of the very best. It's the perfect coda to one of the most daring, subversive, and revolutionary TV shows ever made. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.